So there will also be a moment right at the end of our program today where you can also take more pictures of the class. So we're going to try to move forward, and there's a really great reception for everyone after we're finished here. So I want to get to that as quickly as we possibly can. Okay. So over the past 2 years, the faculty and the staff of the Museology graduate program have really become friends and colleagues and admirers of the class of 2014. And whether behind the scenes or through classes and thesis work, they've tried to make this academic experience as profitable and meaningful as possible. And so I thought I would take this opportunity to formally introduce you to the faculty and staff of the Museology program. So as I announce your name, please rise and remain standing. Jessica Luke, Senior Lecturer for the program. Our Coordinator of Professional Experiences. Maya Farrar with guest. Operations Manager at the back. Andrea Cohen, our Program Assistant. And Lisa Hayes, our Office Assistant. And I think they've earned that round of applause. I think it's safe to say that the faculty and staff would not be successful in their work if not for the assistance of many individuals throughout the university. And at this time, I'd like to ask any members of our interdisciplinary graduate faculty, our course instructors, instructors from other programs who've taught our students over the last 2 years, and anyone who has participated on thesis committees to please stand up and be acknowledged, because we thank you for your service. And I would also, I think we have a number of first-year students, soon to become second-year students, in the audience this evening. And would you please stand and be acknowledged? Do we have any alumni in the audience this evening? Please stand. And last, but certainly not least, the family and friends of the class of 2014. You should please stand and be acknowledged for your commitment, understanding, and support of the class of 2014. Sorry. And now, a few words from the director of the Museology graduate program, Chris Morrissey.
As you celebrate here tonight, I'm on the other side of the state, and the other side of the stage, as my daughter Erin graduates from Eastern Washington University with a degree in, of all things, education. It has been an honor and a pleasure to be part of your life the last 2 years. I wish you all the best with whatever paths you choose. Congratulations, class of 2014. Enjoy.
if I'm not mistaken, after she's done with her graduation, she's going off to Ireland for I don't know how long. But she says she won't be back for a while. So, to be a leading museum studies program, you really need to have a network of extraordinary museum partners throughout the museum field. And obviously we have a number of those here in the area around the university. But we have a unique collaboration with the Burke Museum of Cultural and Natural History, located just a couple of blocks away, since the beginning of our program in 1972. We are honored to have the director of the Burke Museum with us tonight, and we've asked her to offer a few remarks on this occasion. So would you please join me in welcoming the director of the Burke Museum, Dr. Julie Stein.
Thank you. Every year I'm asked to say some remarks, and usually I try to assure the family, partners, siblings, friends of these graduates that they have made a good decision, that they will get a job. This is a good choice. This year I decided that you know that already, and that I would offer some words of context to give you for your celebration and truly the meaning of this master's degree. So in order to do that, I was trying to figure out where do I get the inspiration, and of course I thought of quotes because other people are a lot smarter than I am, so I could just look quotes up, and there's an amazing number of them at your fingertips. So, did you know the most famous quote is by Abraham Lincoln? You can fool all of the people some of the time, some of the people all of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. I guess that's really not appropriate for you guys. So anyway, I moved on. So then I said, well, maybe I should be inspirational. So Thomas Edison's pretty inspirational. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. You didn't give up. You succeeded. So don't give up in the next phase. How about Michelangelo? If you knew how much work went into it, you wouldn't call it genius. Has anyone called your work genius? No one's called my work genius. So maybe I just didn't work hard enough. Maybe we could work harder. Okay, so perhaps I should be motivational. How about this? Walt Disney. If you can dream it, you can do it. Okay, that's a little better. How about this one? And I want you to see if you can guess whose this quote is. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
Dr. Seuss.
See, I just needed to get the right generation. Dr. Seuss, of course. So then I thought, well, motivation, inspiration, well, I really should give these new professionals is wisdom. So then I'm back to Socrates. The only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing. That is not really hopeful because they just spent 2 years learning a whole bunch of things. So now I'm back in trouble. So perhaps George Washington, the president's, first president, I actually think I nailed this one. Associate yourself with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation. For 'tis better to be alone than in bad company. each other. They're good company. Okay, so that didn't work either. So now I'm really stooping low. And here we go with Homer Simpson. Beer is the cause of and solution to all of life's little problems. Okay, I'm on a roll now. So how about Yogi Berra? He was a baseball player in the 50s and 60s that's known for his quotes. I'm just doing my favorites now, forget them. But this one is really important. If you don't know where you are going, you might wind up someplace else. Second one, if you come to a fork in the road, take it. Okay, so this is the final quote, and this one I know they will appreciate, because these people will have jobs and they will be moving all over the United States, perhaps the world, and they need this quote more than any other. It is a moving quote from Atlas Van Lines. You can move 2 rooms of furniture from Seattle to LA for only $2,700. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Julie. Those were great, inspiring quotes. So, at this time, I would like to invite Julia Miller of the class of 2014 to the podium to introduce our commencement speaker. Julia, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, as you said, my name is Julia Miller, and I'm part of the graduating class of 2014. And I am thrilled to be here today to introduce our commencement speaker, senior lecturer in the UW Museology Department, Jessica Luke. On the Graduation Advisory Committee, we were asked to suggest a few names for this event today to speak. And from the very beginning, it was clear that Jessica should be the one speaking today. Jessica Luke comes from a very prestigious career as a researcher and evaluator in the museum field, and she holds a PhD in educational psychology and was the director of research and evaluation for the Institute of Learning Innovation. She began teaching in this program at the very same time that we all began our journey. So she can tell you probably better than anyone about our confusion, our whining, and our struggles along the way, and hopefully in the end, our growth. Jessica has a very rare skill of engaged listening and has this uncanny way of distilling your 2 minutes of rambling, blathering, unsensical thought into one really short sentence. It's really, truly amazing. We are so extremely fortunate to have her as a professor and mentor in this program, and we have all learned so much from you. I know we can't wait to hear one more gem of wisdom from her today. Please help me in welcoming to the stage Jessica Luke.
Thank you, Julia. I don't know that I condensed it down into one sentence, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. Museology staff, friends, alumni, students, family members, and graduates. It is an incredible honor for me to speak today, an honor made more significant to me given that you all occupy a very special place in my professional life. 2 years ago, we started in the Museology graduate program at the same time. Me, as a new and somewhat dazed faculty member, and you all as the bright-eyed incoming cohort of 2014. So when I thought about what I might say today, it seemed most fitting to reflect on the journey we've taken together over the last 2 years, the experiences we've shared, and to offer a few lessons I've learned to this point in my professional life that you might take with you into this next phase of yours. In 2011, I was living in Baltimore, Maryland. I was in my 14th year working at a nonprofit educational research organization called ILI, a group of about 20 people who conducted research and evaluation on how and what people learn in museums. I started working at ILI in 1997, straight out of my master's in museum studies program. And 14 years later, I was the chief operating officer overseeing 20 staff, a $2.2 million budget, and more than 125 projects in museums across the country. So one day in 2011, when I was eating breakfast with my kids, they were 5 and 3 at the time, my 3-year-old daughter asked me what I did at work. I've been waiting for this question. I was really excited. I was about to describe a job that I was really passionate about, that I'd worked really hard for. So I explained to her that Mommy helps museums to understand who visits them and help museums to make what they do better. She paused, I assumed contemplating the magnitude of such a fantastic job, and then looked at me and said, I thought you worked at the airport. Part of what it meant to have 125 projects in museums across the country was that all of us traveled a lot. My daughter logically assumed that since I spent so much time at the airport, I must work there. Her comment confirmed what I'd been thinking for several months to that point, that as much as I loved my job for various reasons, it was time to consider the next phase in my career. In the summer of 2011, I started looking for a new job. When the Museology graduate program at UW posted an opening for a new faculty member, I considered what it might mean to work in a university, to shed my consultant life and step into an academic one. I came out to Seattle to interview in September, and again in November, and a short 8 months after our conversations began, I was officially offered a position. This is the point at which my professional trajectory intersected with all of yours. I suspect we spent the spring of 2012 entertaining similar questions. Should I go to UW, or should I go somewhere else? Is UW the best fit for me? Will I be challenged there? Will I like living in Seattle? And most important, what exactly is the annual rainfall in Seattle? Like all of you, I ultimately decided that UW was the right place for me. And like all of you, in the summer of 2012, I packed up and moved to Seattle. We likely took slightly different journeys here, unless you two camped across country with a then 4- and 6-year-old who, from the moment we pulled into the driveway, started asking, "Are we there yet?" We settled into Seattle, and I spent the first summer orienting myself to the university and the program. And in September 2012, I met all of you. I remember being terribly impressed, thinking if I had been half that articulate and half that thoughtful when I was doing my master's degree, I'd have been unstoppable. At orientation, we asked you to reflect on what a good graduate course looked like, what kinds of instruction you felt you'd benefit most from, the ways in which you wanted to connect and interact with museums in the community. And your responses suggested not only appropriately high expectations, but rich understandings of yourselves as learners. I remember driving home that night feeling excited to be working with such an awesome group of students. And I remember feeling a little bit nervous about what I was going to be able to contribute to this journey as we went through it together. During our first year together in the program, I had the distinct privilege of teaching you all in 3 core courses. Now, I'm not sure you saw it as a privilege. I'm sure you were wholly and completely sick of me by the end of that year. But it allowed me to get to know you as students and as people. In the fall, we took field trips together for Wilson's intro class. Some of you stuffed in my van like sardines as I drove to local museums I'd never been to before and tried to make it look like I knew where I was going. In the winter, we read Forces for Good together in the newly redesigned 590. What to say about 590? I'm not teaching it next year. And in the spring, we had research class together. Some of you crammed in that small room in Denny Hall with me every Wednesday as I tried to convince you that research is awesome. And you explored various thesis topics and ideas. As I'm guessing was the case for many of you, throughout the first year in the program, I often oscillated between self-confidence and self-doubt. Some days I felt I really nailed it. I taught a great class, I had a great advising session, but other days I struggled to make sense of academic life. Parts of it felt strange. I had to constantly ask questions about how things worked, and then ask them again when the answer didn't make any sense to me. shared these reflections with a good friend and colleague, she said that starting a new job is a lot like visiting a foreign country. You're not entirely sure what people are saying a lot of the time. You have no routines to fall back on since everything is new. And while the novelty is thrilling, it's also exhausting. You might remember that analogy as you start your new job in the coming weeks and months, and give yourselves permission to feel like a lost tourist some days. Starting my second year at UW, I felt more confident, which I suspect was true for many of you as well. After all, we had 1 year under our belts, and we turned our attention to thesis work. You all represent not only 34 graduating master's students, but 34 master's theses. A word my husband warned me this morning when I practiced this speech to say very carefully with great effort so as to not communicate a different sentiment. So, 34 master's theses that showcase original research and innovative projects. I cannot tell you how impressed I am by that work, and I want to take a moment to reflect on it. I conducted a content analysis of all of your abstracts. And wait. And I identified trends across them. Surely you did not think I was going to get through a whole speech without doing some sort of research. Collectively, your cohort has generated thesis work that advances the field in at least 4 key areas. The first is best practices in museums. Your thesis work describes best practices for audiences, early learners, school groups, best practices for interpretation, facilitating dialogue, using technology in school field trips, YouTube as a tool for engagement, best practices for collections, policies for accessioning, for de-accessioning, for managing military objects and shoes and objects of tragedy, online collections, and best practices for fundraising, membership, and marketing. It is an amazing range of work. The second contribution you've made to the field through your thesis work is better understanding particular museum audiences, from adults' interest in math, to young girls' interest in science, to school kids' academic identity, to the ways in which museum professionals use museums in their leisure time. Third, your collective thesis work extends research on museums and community, including studies focused on the ways in which small museums engage their community or use social work to solve local community problems, as well as those focused on models of public curation and the role of museum architecture in shaping community identity, and those focused on how to tell authentic stories from the point of view of particular groups in the community. Finally, your thesis work provides international perspectives as well, with research on the emergence of temple museums in Japan and the impact of tourists at World Heritage sites. Again, it's an impressive body of work. And I know I speak for all the museology faculty when I say I'm proud to have played even a small role in this process, whether it was as chair, committee member, or just a nosy, interested bystander. As a faculty member, you learn a lot about yourself, advising students through the thesis process. You learn even more, it turns out, when you hang out with students at an open bar. At our museology reception at the American Alliance of Museums conference last month, after the whiskey had begun to flow, I learned from your cohort that I have a look. The death stare, I think it's called. And I may need some of you to tell me what it looks like so I can use it on my children. I learned that I make really good use of my eyebrows to communicate how I truly feel about a subject. And I learned that the use of my word fantastic really does mean fantastic. Whereas my use of the word terrific means there's a, but you need to redo this. There are many aspects of this job that are humbling, but perhaps none so much as when you realize that your carefully crafted professional persona is not nearly as cloaked as you think it is. Thank you for not letting me take myself too seriously, and thank you for not sharing the full, longer list of Jessica Luke-isms. We've reached the end of our 2 years together. You are graduating, leaving behind your graduate school status for that of museum professional, and I am continuing to deepen my newfound identity as professor, refining my death stare for future cohorts. Looking forward from this point, I believe it is a truly exciting time to be entering the museum profession. The Institute of Museum and Library Services just released this week their public database of all the museums in this country. By their count, there are 35,144 museums in the United States. 34 graduates, 35,144 museums in which they can work. Perhaps more importantly, the nature of the work going on in museums and the conversations being had about what museums can do is tremendously exciting. There are so many examples of museums that are thinking richly and deeply about how to connect people with objects, ideas, and issues. They're looking to research and what we know about how people learn in order to develop interpretive strategies. And they're experimenting with ways to create immersive, participatory, interactive, and personalized experiences. When I first started in this field almost 20 years ago, I could count on one hand the number of in-house evaluators in museums. That number has grown exponentially. In the last few months alone, there have been job postings for evaluators at the Pacific Science Center here in Seattle, as well as the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, the Science Museum of Minnesota in St. Paul. The question is no longer whether to evaluate, but how to develop a culture of evaluation within museums, how to institutionalize evaluation in museums. In my mind, these questions stand to bring about continued innovative change in museum practice. Consider, too, the changes in the administration of museums. I'm excited by the ways in which museums are refining and redefining their operational models, rethinking revenue streams, reorganizing themselves to better meet the needs of visitors, and recrafting their missions to better identify the social good that they provide. You are entering the field at a time of great innovation and experimentation, and I can't wait to see where you take us in the next decade. It was almost 2 decades ago that I stood where you stand, graduating with a master's degree in museum studies. I can still remember feeling that combination of exhilaration and terror. And I wish I could tell you there's a recipe to follow for success, but if there's anything I've learned in my professional life to this point, it's that you have to find your own path. If I'm honest, I spent the first few years of my professional life feeling that if someone could just tell me how to do this job, I'd be great at it. And I spent more time than I should have worrying that it was just a matter of time before people realized that I didn't have the formula, that I was making it up as I went along. It wasn't until I got much older that I realized that was the point. You make it up as you go along. So my first piece of advice to you is to make your own path and to own it. It's not supposed to look like anyone else's, it's yours. My second piece of advice is to follow your passions. I started my master's program thinking I wanted to be an art museum educator. When I heard about an internship position with John Falk, who had just written The Museum Experience a few years earlier, I thought that sounded interesting. I had no idea people studied museum visitors for a living, let alone that I would like it and be good at it. Throughout my career, I've paid attention to when things interest me, and to when I feel like I'm doing something I'm good at, to when I'm leveraging my strengths. And I've trusted that those things will lead me somewhere meaningful. And they have. My third and final piece of advice is this: stretch outside of your comfort zone. The first time I presented at a national conference, I defined success as not throwing up all over the podium. I achieved that criteria. And I did it again and again, and it got easier. And it turned out that I liked it. By no means am I suggesting you should do things that make you feel sick to your stomach. What I am suggesting is that one of the best ways to know yourself and to know your own professional strengths and weaknesses is to do something that scares you. So that's my advice to you. Find your own path, follow your passions, and reach outside of your comfort zone. I am incredibly honored to have shared this journey with you, and I'm immensely grateful for all I have learned from you along the way. In the words of my now 8-year-old son, it's been epic. I wish each of you the absolute best moving forward and await with confidence the many positive impacts I know you will make in the field. Please, everyone, join me in congratulating the graduating class of 2014.
give. So, we move on to our next phase. 2 years ago, we began a tradition of inviting first-year students to present the graduating class, and we're going to continue that tradition again this year. So 2 members of the class of 2015 will honor our graduates this evening by reading their names and thesis titles, acknowledging students who completed the New Directions program in audience research, and acknowledging those who have completed certificates outside of the Museology program. And we also have this year 1 student graduating with a graduate certificate in Museology, although she isn't here this evening. And as they walk across the stage, graduates will receive a certificate signifying the completion of their graduate studies in museology, as well as a pair of white curator's gloves as a symbol of their mastery of the art of museological theory, method, and practice. And then there's a few other small tokens of our esteem. So, I would like to invite Anna Lopez and Grant Barber of the class of 2015 to the podium to present the class of 2014.
Jessica Bellingham, Deaccessioning and Disposal, a project for the Puget Sound Maritime Historical Society.
Kevin Bicknell, Examining Perceptions of Authenticity in Museum Exhibits about Skateboarding.
Andrew Bowen, the role in museum marketing departments during the exhibition development process. Andrew is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Amanda Diroff, Vlogging the Museum, YouTube as a tool for audience engagement. Amanda is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Linda De Jesus, Museum Outreach and Academic Identity, an examination of academic identity formation in underserved audiences. And Linda is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Alyssa DePlanty, Adult Immigrants and the American Museum, forming relationships and engagement from within the community.
Flannery Donnelly, Operating a Museum for Profit, a case study of the Museum of Sex. Flannery also completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management.
Megan Ellingwood, What Remains? The Life of Stuart Hall Holbrook.
Seema Gajria, The Souls of Shoes, Evaluating and Designing a Storage Solution for Mohai's Shoe Collection.
Katie Hall, Talking Human Rights, a facilitated dialogue model for the Washington State Holocaust Education Resource Center.
Danny Hastings, Combating Visitor Pressure, Impact of Tourism on the Conservation of World Heritage Sites.
Sharing Authority, a community-minded collection development policy for the Burke Museum Japanese Folk Art Collection.
Mary Jane Itis, redevelopment of the First Peoples of the Pacific Northwest pre-visit materials at the Burke Museum of Natural History and Culture.
Developing a standardized model for collections management at the Northwest Nikkei Museum.
Anna Johnson, Math Attitudes and Interests of Adult Science Cafe Participants. Anna is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Leisure and Practice, an exploratory study on the impact of leisurely museum visits on museum professionals. Colleen is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative and also completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management.
Elisa Law, Sacred Commodities, the Emergence of Temple Museums in Japan. Elisa also completed a graduate certificate in international development.
Lauren Morallo, Integrating Art plus STEM, an exploratory study of 3 science centers. Lauren is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Matt McCallum, Analysis of Fundraising in Maritime Museums. Matt also completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management. Matt is not able to join us this evening, but we congratulate him.
Julia Miller, Emerging Practices, Early Learning in Art Museums. Julia is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Mark Mulder, Visualizing the Holocaust, the Perceived Benefits and Concerns, including Holocaust atrocity images in exhibits.
Samantha Roby, Science Fiction Exhibits as STEM Gateways.
Managing Military Artifacts, a significant assessment for the Museum of History and Industry.
Emily Schmeier, Resonance and Relevance, Reactions to Collaboratively Developed Display of Culture. Emily is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Lucas Sheets, Collaborate and Listen, How Small Museums Define and Pursue Community Engagement.
and also completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management.
Kelly Stott, Collecting Modern Tragedies, Recommendations for the Nordic Heritage Museum. Kelly is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Zachary Stocks, Activist Social Work in Small Museums, a community-level exploration.
Amanda Stone, Public Curation as Civic Engagement, Gaining Success in Participatory Curatorial Models.
Claire Talley-Foos, Understanding Technology Integration on Single Visit Field Trips, a case study of 3 programs. Claire is also a participant of the New Directions in Audience Research Initiative.
Dening Tang, Local Community Museum Architecture, Planning and Designing for Community.
Rebecca Tresser, Monte Cristo Interpretation Plan.
Paul Tupper, Who Can We Know? Connecting Islandwood's current key stakeholders to desired target site stakeholders using existing yet unexposed board connections. Paul also completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management.
Carlin Wickle, Great Expectations, Researching Usability of Online Museum Collections.
Mary Barnes. Mary completed a graduate certificate in museology. Mary is not able to join us this evening, but we congratulate her.
We present to you the graduating class of 2014.
So this brings us to the close of our graduation ceremonies this evening. Okay. So I told Andrea earlier that all she needs to do is to give me a schedule, and I will stick to it, and tell me what to say, and lead me wherever I need to go. That's how valuable she is to the program. Now I believe you have something you want to say.
Thank you, Wilson. I just wanted to thank the class of 2014 for being so amazing. I've really enjoyed working with you the past few years. I'm going to miss you all so much. I also wanted to thank the Graduation Advisory Committee for really helping shape this graduation and make it your personal style. And with that, I wanted to welcome Colleen and Amanda to represent the Advisory Committee.
excited to stand here with you today and celebrate the completion of our graduate studies in, was it museum studies? Musicology. Musicology, or is it museumology? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one? No. Museology. A word we will forever spend the rest of our lives describing to everyone we meet.
As new initiates into the Masters Club, we all know how the hard work that went into this. We also know that we couldn't have done this without the help of others, many of whom are here today. In particular, the 2014 cohort would like to extend our thanks to
The first person who's not with us here today, to our program director, Chris Morrissey. She was our Chris Morrissey, for those of you who haven't had the joy of meeting her, has been our mama bear throughout this program. We look forward to her classes, not only because she encouraged us to think creatively, she challenged us in our boundaries, but she also had a delicious assortment of snacks and goodies waiting for us at every single class. Thank you, Chris.
To the Associate Director, Wilson O'Donnell, like the wise sage you are, you guided us through the highs and lows of grad school, like the expertly curated collections of comics, infused presentations with a sense of purpose and wonder in every class.
To our fellow newbie and graduate, Jessica Luke. I was going to say it's been a terrific experience, but I think I'm going to change that to fantastic. Getting to navigate these years of grad school with you. We are honored that you accepted our invitation to speak with us today, and in a way, it was the last thread that you were able to pull through for us. Thank you.
To Nick Fisher, thank you for keeping it real. There is no other professor we'd rather swap weekend stories with or follow on Twitter. You reminded us that in addition to a learning experience, grad school can be a fun one.
Finally, we would like to thank Maya Farr, Lisa Hayes, and Andrea Cohen, and all of the adjunct professors in this program who have helped us get to this point. Thank you for responding to our frantic emails and patiently waiting while we remember our deadlines and a million other things. We really appreciate it.
It is an immense joy that we get to share this experience with Museology's 2014 cohort. Thank you for inspiring us, challenging us, surprising us, and befriending us.
So I just got the nod from Andrea that I could now close the ceremony. So that's what I'm going to do. We want to invite you all to the reception at the Burke Museum in honor of the graduates of the class of 2014. You won't have any problems finding the museum. Every one of these students knows where it is, and you're probably connected to one of them. So they'll take you there. And as we end, feel free to take more pictures of this graduating class. It'll be the last time you see them all together in one place. I'd like to offer the program's sincerest congratulations to the graduates of the class of 2014. And let's go to the reception.
Woo!